my name is Ailsa. I've been working in UX and design for about 10 years now. Probably stopped counting about 5 years ago, so I don't know what that says for my math skills, but I've definitely been working in the industry for a while. The last 5 companies I've led design teams in different software companies. At the moment, I'm working in Workday. I joined a year ago. Workday is a HR and finance software company. Most of our clients are medium to large enterprise. Me and the team that I work with, we don't focus on the Workday applications. We work in a more of a back-end service. It's the experience of deploying customers to Workday. So it's kind of like a backstage space that designers don't normally go. Our end users are professional users. They've been trained how to use our tools, the deployment tools. It's a complex space and there's an awful lot of interdependencies, and some of the projects they work on go on weeks, months, if not years. So there's challenges to the designers in terms of understanding the interdependencies, and there's an awful lot of technical jargon as well. I suppose I'm kind of highlighting the complexity of the space because I wanted an excuse to show you my complexity graph. So the problems we're solving, they're not right up there with climate change problems, but they're not as easy as getting a haircut in the coronavirus, right? We're kind of in the middle. Think of it more like we're trying to solve a problem like how to entertain your 3-year-old kid during the coronavirus when you have to work. And speaking of which, my 3-year-old is beginning to develop her imagination play. So when I'm not working, I'm forced to play baby, or we're still pretend to be the daddy dinosaur who has to change the baby's nappy, the baby minion. Or even worse still, her latest game is pretending to be a slimy worm. And guess who has to be the slimy worm? But back to Workday. I want to just give you a little bit of context of the Workday design team and how we have evolved up until now before I start talking to you about some of the strategies we're trialing out. So Workday was founded in 2005. Quite early on, the leaders differentiated themselves from the other enterprise solutions by saying that we're going to focus more on being competitors to consumer-based applications. It's a new breed of enterprise software on the cloud. And from there, they heavily invested in the design team. By 2015, we had a strong design team starting to show the value of early concept designs, as well as the usability and the downstream work. And we reached a milestone this year by hiring a VP of design. So there's about 150 of us in total at the moment. And to us, we feel like that's it's a pretty sizable, meaty team. We've got our design operations in place. We've got producers, we've design education, we've got a design system. We're feeling quite strong about who we are and where we are today. But when you just take a moment to step back and look at the org that we're serving, there's about 2,000 in product org, and that's not even including the technology org. And when you look at Workday overall, there's 12,000 people. So suddenly we start feeling like we're, I suppose you could say, a small fish in a big pond. Or how I prefer to think of it, more like a baby shark. I'm just going to leave this hang for a minute to make sure that tune gets ingrained in your mind for the day. But it's not just the fact that we're serving and we're trying to influence and provide for a large organization that also has some, I suppose you could say, mature software and supporting systems. But there's also the challenge of the industry. The needs in the industry are growing and the expectations are increasing. It's users just like you guys. You expect to be able to just book your holiday at the weekend, and to us that means 0 downtime. We expect the HR and the financial system to be integrated. So if you achieve your quarterly goal, that you will get the bonus automatic. Well, hopefully so. The experience from the prospects, the expectations of the prospects are also getting higher. They want this type of software to come in and transform their business. So design is becoming more and more important in our industry, and for also Workday ourselves. It's becoming more and more important that we operate at a higher level, that we're still able to support the downstream user flows, but we're also able to get the user represented at the business level decisions. So internally, we're looking at different strategies that we can trial. And there is one that I'm going to talk to you about, and I'm going to give you some practical tips of what you also can do in-house if you'd like to try it out. But first, like what I say to my team and what I'm also suggesting to you is just be open to considering the role of the designer, what it is and what is the role of the designer. But first, a quick question. What happens 35,000 times a day? I know what you're probably thinking. It's the amount of times Matt Damon was spotted in Dublin. I know Mary saw him in Dalkey, and he was in a steakhouse, and he was at Sea Point swimming. So it may feel like we're seeing him 35,000 times a day, and we probably even like to see him 35,000 times a day, but it's not actually that. It's we make 35,000 decisions daily. That's a huge amount. There's a big scale, the big feature decisions you could think of who we get married to, where we decide to live, whether we decide to watch Ozark or Tiger King, or maybe a little bit of both, but where we sit when we're working from home, or whether we have a drink of wine maybe one night of the lockdown, every night of the lockdown. But I suppose my point here is these small decisions, or at least some of these small decisions, they have impact, they add up, and they impact your life experience. Do you have a pain in your back if you're sitting in the wrong seat? Have you drunk a little bit too much wine maybe every night? Possibly like me, and you're starting to get fear. What I've heard people talk about is the pandemic pound. Are you not doing your exercise and choosing wine instead? But I'm not here to talk about wine and exercise. But I think another good example too is even this conference. This is a small decision. You had other things to do, but you decided to come to this conference. And that decision in itself won't change the course of your life experience. But if you consistently make these small decisions to stay up to date in the industry, to catch what's going on, you're going to start getting new strategies to bring to your projects and the initiatives that you lead. And it's going to bring new opportunities to you. All these small decisions add up to create your life experience. Some of them obvious and some less so obvious. And the product experience that we are working towards is exactly the same. It is a result of so many decisions, some obvious that we know are design decisions, but some less obvious made all around us. There's the classic ones that us as designers make. What should the user flow be like? Should it be one step or two steps? And there's kind of the broader decision about the user segment that we're going to go after. There's the engineering decisions about the performance. Do we let the user wait 3 seconds to load that table, or do we address that performance issue? There's like the business level decisions about acquisitions. Are we going to acquire that data analytics platform and help give predictive insights? And then there's the more specific decisions on the ground about call to actions and how do we guide the user through the flows. The experience that we create isn't a result of just our design decisions. It's a result of all the decisions made all around us. And if it's a good experience, it will be a result of many good decisions made. Sure, so design is a team sport. We as designers don't drive and make all the decisions. And we'll create the better experience if, just like I said, if everyone together makes a higher quality decisions. There are some classic decisions that are more user-focused based, whether it's we display data in a table format or in a dashboard. And there's some design decisions that index a little bit more on the technology side about the performance and the load time, for example. But the main point I'm emphasizing here is that a good decision needs to take into account the business, the user, and the technology. And take, for example, Google Glass. They brought business and technology value. They had that nailed, but they just didn't consider enough of the user needs. Users couldn't find a reason to use the Google Glass. And Theranos, did they consider the user's needs? So you guys probably know, but Theranos is the company behind looking at how to do a very quick blood sample test. From one drop of blood, they'd run a range of tests. So did they consider the user need? Absolutely, they nailed it. But did they have the technology, the engineering to back it up? They most definitely didn't. And what happens when you over-index in one area and you don't consider the other? Well, in this case, we're going to find out this August. She has her court case coming up. So I just want to hammer down this point, because I know the concept of design being a hero is long gone. We know we don't make design decisions alone, but just to really emphasize that the design and the experience we create is a result of everybody's effort. We succeed if everyone is making the high quality decisions together. And it's cool. Designers, we know we got this, right? Don't we just thrive in collaboration? I know in Workday, we really have put a huge effort into leading at the forefront of this collaboration design. Like from working on our project briefs, an early stage is highly collaborative. We make sure we bring the project teams into a research or analysis workshops are highly collaborative. We even run design workshops where all the team, including engineers, architects, whoever would like to get involved, actually work through the solutions together. So it's very easy to think that as designers, we've totally got this team sport already. But I'm noticing internally, and I also wonder if it's the same in other places, like, have we actually got it? Like this concept of designing and creating everything together with business, technology, and the UX involved, it's huge effort and puts a huge strain on us day to day. We have to make decisions like, do we focus on the user flow and get everyone involved in that? Do we support the engineer just before to release to production? Sometimes we even ask ourselves, like, are we actually working on the right initiative? Is the initiative itself solving the right problem? Should we have been involved earlier on before we decided to greenlight this initiative in the first place? Like this feeling of knowing decisions are happening all around us and knowing that we need to be there to represent the user at all different levels puts a strain on us trying to figure out where we need to focus. So bringing it back to the org that I support, about 7 months ago, a designer in my team, actually, he was the only designer in my team at the moment. I was only in about 3 months. He asked to talk to me, and we went for a walk in Smithfield, had a cup of coffee, and he told me that he was leaving, he was handing his notice in. I just remember that day so clearly because I'd only been in the role 3 months. I had a couple of open headcounts at the time. But the org that I was supporting, there were so many different initiatives going on. And like I said, the space is quite complicated. And I wasn't anywhere near the level of understanding which of the tools we're developing was actually answering the user needs, which were the ones with duplications, where was more chaos being created. But I did know that a lot of the decisions were being made without that user focus lens. Like simple things like words that just didn't make sense and that were quite technical, or information that the users were looking for that was like 10 clicks away when we could have just surfaced it initially. I had only a superficial view of what was going on, but I knew that there was so much need for a design representative in all these initiatives that we were working on. So as I started hiring my team, I started thinking about what the strategy we were going to try out in our team. I mean, there's the usual one where you just go for focus. I could pick 2 of the initiatives, put the designers and the researchers that I were brand new in the role that I hired, and just go for delivering great quality in those 2 areas. Or the other approach is just to support everybody a little bit, just address maybe the usability concerns or the content or the guidance throughout all the tools, just a little bit for everybody, which we in Workday call the peanut butter effect. Most people don't get value from it, except me, which I love. I tend to love peanut butter. But anyway, I stood back and I started thinking about what the strategy is. If design decisions are being made all around us, and a good quality decision requires the business, the user, and the engineering perspective, the challenge I ask myself is, how can I get the user represented in all those decisions, even if I don't have that headcount to just automatically assign a UX to each of the areas? And that's led me and the team to trying out a new strategy called pass the ball. Right? So if design is a team sport, we started looking for opportunities where we can pass the ball. And the ball here is standing for like the user information, the user insights, letting other people understand the user perspective. So the fact that we could pass them the ball and they could run with it, meaning that they had the information and the context they needed to, they would continue to make their own decisions, but they would bring that context of the user to them and thus up the quality of the decisions. So we have over the last year, and there was a few the year before as well, kickstarted a lot of initiatives under this concept of pass the ball approach. But what I'm going to do is just deep dive into one of them to talk to you about that method. If it's something of interest, then you can try out in your own company. So it's the Improvathon. Last year, we organized a week-long event with the product org that I was supporting. There's about 80 devs and 11 PMs, 2 locations. The idea was it was a week long where everyone downed their tools, stopped working on their own work, and came together in the 2 different locations to learn and understand the tools and the experience we were building from a user's perspective. And then they had 2 days to self-organize and make any improvement that they can do from the user's perspective within those 2 days. So it's Improvathon because we were only focused on those minor improvements. But the goal was to change the perspective so that people themselves, the engineers and the architects, had the context of the user when they were working on the features. On the first day, we did an empathy session. So this was the first time that some of these guys actually even heard from the end user. Like I said, some of them were working on such back-end stuff that they didn't even understand or have that information accessible to how their code related to a feature and how that related to a user doing a task and what the user was actually trying to do at the end of the day. And most importantly, that the user was actually just a normal human being. Sometimes we drifted from that. So we listened to the users, we mapped out our personas, and then that flowed into everybody learning how to use the tools, more specifically, how to complete the tasks that our end users actually have to complete. So we did a day and a half of learning and going through and completing the basic tasks. And this, again, was the first time people could see how their code related to what the user was trying to do and accomplish. And the idea too was when people were going through this experience, they were noting down all on the post-its, all the problems and all the ideas they had or the barriers they bumped into going through these tasks. So by the end of the total 2 days, both rooms were just covered in hundreds and thousands of post-its, which is probably normal when you work with UX anyway. There's always too many post-its. So on day 3, 4, and 5, the guys self-organized into teams to ideate, design, and develop. So people would just pull post-its from the board, a problem or an idea that they had that they wanted to work on, self-organize. They themselves would be brainstorming, doing the design, the ideation, sketching, prototyping. We had our end users walking around the room as well as us in UX. So they would be the guys like pulling in the end users, getting feedback, iterating on the feedback. I guess what I'm emphasizing here is that UX was facilitating the experience, but it was those guys that were deciding what was the most important things to go after, doing the prioritization, doing the design thinking, the design process, the iteration. And just to make it a little bit more, I guess, understandable, I'm just going to give you a couple of examples of what the kind of things we're working on. And I do want to emphasize just minor changes. Like in this example, we had pagination. There was a feature released 2 years ago, and let's just say there's 11 pages people need to paginate through based on the customer data. But if people viewed it from the wrong browser or a different device, that pagination just disappeared. And this is something that people used thousands of times. One developer spent 5 minutes fixing the pagination. He changed it from like fixed height to relative height, and boom, it was fixed. Like when we showed that to the customer said they nearly cried. Like the end user, the professional user, has to go through this every time and just work away some hack to fix it. So such an easy thing to do from a code perspective. It's just that having the perspective to understand that this is actually such a blocker for the user. And another simple example was this graph view. When people visited this feature, the graph loaded by default, but on average, this graph took about 3 seconds to load. But we found out that 90% of people always default clicked the list view. So they'd wait for the graph to load 3 seconds and then click list view. Again, a developer just changed the default. All they did is defaulted to the list view instead of the graph view. So that saved 3 seconds and a click. But this task is run 1.3 million times a year on average. So like just adding up that time, that saved about 1,083 hours in effort. So like these small changes really added up to time saving. And the reason why I'm emphasizing time is because that's what this project team measures their OKR on. Our goal is to reduce the amount of time it is to do these tasks to get the customer live. earlier. So time is the metric we're measuring against. So within the full week, the guys and us, we brainstormed thousands of ideas, designed and iterated on about 100, developed 41, demoed 37, and shipped 20. But like I was saying earlier, firstly, each of these initiatives and each of these ideas did take a sizable chunk of the time to implement. But the real main idea, that the main value that we got from it was that mindset. The fact that everyone had a perspective now of the user, what they were trying to do, what they were trying to experience, and they can bring that to any of the decisions they make moving forward, which then frees up the design team to mean we can have bigger impact across the space and even have time to focus on other initiatives as well. So, and on the Improvathon, like I said, it's turned into a biannual event for this project team. We got enough value that we're going to keep it going twice a year. I'm already seeing continued results from the focus, because like we said, there's lots of initiatives happening at the moment that we haven't resourced from a UX perspective, and they're still bringing that user focus lens to their decisions. And we're also scaling it out. We've run one already that's a cross-org, slightly bigger Improvathon. So just to recap what we've been talking about, and I guess my message to you guys is, designers don't own the design decisions. It's a team sport. Design decisions are being made all around us. And the more we can lean into that and help everyone make better quality decisions, the more impact we'll have. And we feel this challenge in Workday, and I'm sure you guys feel it as well. Like, how can you be there to support all the initiatives, right? The user flow, the usability testing, but also help influence the business level decisions and get the user represented there. And like, scaling a team isn't the only strategy, or not even the best strategy. So I'm asking all of you to think about how you can scale your operations. And if you can pass the ball of information and user insight to other people in your team to go ahead and make decisions, you'll be sure to scale the impact of what the design team has, right? That's it for me. Thank you very much. If you have any questions,